it was just what my OB suggested, and we went with it. So at 2 o'clock p.m., I'm at 4 centimeters, get my first round of Pitocin. So because that's intravenous, I was stuck in my birthing room. I could, kind of wheel my IV into the bathroom and birth on the toilet. I did that. It was good. At that point, it wasn't so gnarly, so I pretty much stuck with the bed. Had a lot of heating pads and cold washcloths on my head, heating pads on my back and on my stomach. But 6 o'clock p.m., 4 hours later, they come back in to check me, and I had progressed to 6 centimeters. Sweet. It had been pretty gnarly without my waters intact and with the Pitocin. I was like, okay, I can do this if we stay at this pace. Every 4 hours, 2 centimeters. Not exactly the progress I'd like to be making, but it's better than nothing. So, cool. I make it to 6 centimeters by 6 p.m. So then 4 hours later, and they had upped the Pitocin. At that point, they decided to go ahead and up the Pitocin to try to get me to that 10 a little quicker, and so I didn't have to labor that way. And so slowly. 10 p.m., they come back in, still 6 centimeters, time to up the Pitocin, and I was just moaning, yeah, and like it was probably one of the toughest things at that point. I was getting exhausted. Mind you, the night before, Tuesday into Wednesday, when we first got to the hospital, Nate, I got like 7 hours of sleep. My doula and my midwife took shifts sleeping and leaving and doing their thing. I'm up this whole time. I couldn't sleep. So, at that 10 p.m. mark when they up the Pitocin, I'm having a rough time, but I'm not trying not to look at the clock, doing what I can. My doula is encouraging me to switch positions and stuff, but I'm feeling pretty comfortable in the bed and with the heating pads on me and stuff, or at least I think I am. When I do move, I do like it a little better, but it's just it was gnarly. At that point, with the Pitocins, no waters intact, everything going on, it was gnarly. So, they let me stay an extra hour. They usually wanted to check every 4 hours. I made it to 5 hours. At 3 o'clock a.m., they came back in, checked me again. I was dying, moaning. Everyone heard me. Everyone, just was like, I don't know what they were thinking. But, so 3 o'clock a.m., they checked me again. Still stuck at 6 centimeters. And I'm pretty much in tears. I can't take it anymore. Begging for them to take me off of the Pitocin, but they won't. I look at my options and decide that an epidural is the direction that I would like to go. Unfortunately, I just was exhausted, and at that point, I had been in labor 30 hours, and let's see, at that point, over like 18 hours of that, about 18 hours of that was without waters, my bag of waters intact, and with the browns of Pitocin, all that stuff going on, and no sleep, and I couldn't hear 6 centimeters one more time. Come on, bud. What are you doing? You want to be burped? Sorry. But come on, buddy. So yeah, I was at the point where if I heard 6 centimeters one more time, because I'd already heard it 3 times. If I heard it one more time, I just couldn't take it anymore. I was scared. It was something that I had to sit and talk to my doula about. I was scared of them telling me they wanted to up the Pitocin one more time. Nate, my significant other, was just like angry at this point, angry about the Pitocin. In between contractions, I was so exhausted. My uterus was so, come on, buddy, was so overstimulated that in between contractions, it was like as hard as a rock. So I wasn't, come on, dude, he gets all crazy. He's still hungry. He's got a pretty strong neck for a 4-week-old. But anyways, he was just so frustrated because he saw that, like, at that night, he stayed up all night with me that night because I was on going into my 3rd day. But he could see that, like, yeah, during the contractions, obviously, I was having a very tough time, and I was, like, barely making it through it, it felt like at that point. But in between, my uterus was so hard. Like, it wasn't relaxing. It wasn't calming down. So I talked to my doula. I'm in tears, and I'm like, I can't do this anymore. I just can't. I am a trooper, yeah, whatever. The thing I was afraid of, though, was with all the Pitocin in my body, and then the only way they would turn the Pitocin off is if I got an epidural. So, and otherwise they were going to increase the dose, and I was just mortified. I don't know. So, my doula and I decided to sit and talk about it, and she encouraged me that it was a good decision, that if it were her, she's super crunchy and not into it, and she said that she would do the same thing. So at 31 hours, after waiting for the anesthesiologist, all that good stuff, the epidural finally took effect at 31 hours. And then it was kind of cool. I mean, I could still feel my right side a little bit. My left side was pretty good as far as being numb. But yeah, so at 5 o'clock in the morning, I got my epidural and felt pretty awesome. Almost like 10 minutes, 15 minutes after I got the epidural, I was like, I feel something in my butt. Like something's going on. There's some serious pressure in my butt. And this is right after I got the epidural. So... but they weren't going to come back to check me for another 2 hours. So at 7 o'clock a.m., and they had upped the Pitocin at that point after the epidural took effect. So at 7 o'clock a.m., she comes back in, she checks, I'm at 10 centimeters, and I just have a lip. So that's where, if you would have known me, I would have been heartbroken about succumbing to the epidural and actually going for it. But I knew when I heard that was what my body needed. It needed that time to relax. It needed to just chill out, to open up so he could be here and be born. So when I heard that 10 centimeters, I was just, other than the fact that I wasn't feeling my contractions anymore, I was blissful. I was just like, oh my gosh, thank God. But they wanted to wait a little bit because I still had a little bit of a lip on my cervix. So we waited, and she came back 2 hours later. Everything was good. We're ready to push. I pushed for 2 hours, and he was born at 11:04 a.m. A little too much information, but I did have a little bit of a tear, just one stitch, and so it wasn't that bad. Although I'm not gonna lie, like the healing part of everything felt way more painful than, she's from other birthing stories where I've heard like crazy amount of stitches. It still was not fun healing for me. I stayed in the hospital for a day. I did have like a little bit of, I definitely got some baby blues while I was still in the hospital too. And that might have been some of the drugs coming out of my system, plus the hormones and everything. But I just like had a moment where I was just alone with him for the first time, and I started crying, and I was like, the pediatrician walks in, and I'm like, I don't know why I'm crying. I don't know. And he's like, that's completely normal. And so... yeah, I don't know. That's pretty much it. Other than that, Shane has been an awesome baby. As soon as he came out, he peed on me, and I actually loved pushing. I'm sure some people might say that's because I didn't feel it all the way, but I felt like my doula had said this, like because I enjoy fitness and stuff, that I would actually like it because I can finally do something with that energy instead of feeling hopeless, like with the contractions. And that's exactly how it was. Like I felt so hopeless and desperate, like, come on, like open up, body. And then when I had the pushing, it was like, come on, contraction, let's get this show on the road. I want to meet my son. So yeah, that was my birthing experience. It was crazy, beautiful, long, finished at 37 hours and 4 minutes. And it was everything that I wanted and everything I didn't, and but exactly what I needed to feel empowered. I know that I exhausted all of my options before I chose the ones that I didn't want to necessarily do, and I feel good about it. So I hope you enjoyed listening to my story. Sorry it was a little all over the place. As a new mom, gonna have to listen to what they want to do, and he's being a little fussy tonight. But yeah, thank you for listening, and if you have any questions or anything like that, I'd love to hear from you. But yeah, thanks for listening. Bye.